Lakers versus Timberwolves, who's gonna win? Here's another matchup that I am highly looking forward to. But guess what? I'm going against the grain here. I know a ton of people are picking the Lakers. I have Timberwolves in 6. Uh-oh, Laker fans are gonna be mad at me, but let me explain why. The combo of Luka and LeBron we know is off the charts. The talent, the IQ, the passing, we could see the most incredible passes from them to them, like from each other. And Austin Reeves, I've talked about him, and we'll have a little stipulation later in this video as to how I think the Lakers could potentially win this series, but Austin Reeves has been playing out of his mind. But here's why I think the Timberwolves are going to win. One of the reasons is actually due to the Lakers themselves, and that is their defense. Now, they have gone through stretches where they are very, very good defensively, since the Luka trade, but I don't trust them to be locked in defensively for 48 minutes. And I'm not trying to say it disrespectfully. I don't really know how to explain it any better than that. I think they have the capability to be a good defensive team, but I don't see them being an elite defensive team in the playoffs, and that could cost them, especially in a series like this. Because guess what? The team that they are facing are the 6th best defense. The Lakers are 17th overall. And I know that number, again, is a little different just because, post Luka and prior to Luka, it's a whole different story. But generally speaking, the Timberwolves are a better defensive team. And we've seen it. We saw it last year when they were the number 1 rated defense. I know the Timberwolves are going to be good defensively for 48 minutes straight. Jaden McDaniels, that man can play defense. But I don't think that alone is going to put the Timberwolves over the edge. I actually think it's going to be partly due to the underdog mentality, Ant-Man, and 2 players on that roster who have something to prove. So let's start with Anthony Edwards. Having Anthony Edwards as an underdog, I didn't look at what this series, rates them, but I'm pretty positive the Lakers are favorite. Listen, there are some players you don't want them to be an underdog because they will come at you. Anthony Edwards is one of them, and he has already had his playoff experience. Like, he's not going to make rookie mistakes. He knows what to do in the playoffs, and he is hungry and motivated. This is a man who I would not want to face in the playoffs, not in the first round, because, again, he has a nice team around him. It's not that it's just Anthony Edwards by himself. He has a bunch of good players on the roster. I think Anthony Edwards is not going to burn out like last year. I think he learned his lesson when he said, I'm taking Kyrie, and then he had to do so many other things, right? I think he learned his lesson, and I think he's going to come at the Lakers. And again, I don't think there's anybody who could stop Anthony Edwards. And if the Minnesota Timberwolves are smart, and as talented as Luka is, we know he is not a defender. So what should they do, and what do I think they might do? Just put Luka in every defensive play, and you're probably going to get results. Luka is so good offensively, you're never going to play him off the floor, right? Like, that's not going to happen unless he gets in foul trouble, which is something else that could happen, but you're never going to play him off the floor. But if you're essentially trading baskets from Luka's, whoever he's guarding, that kind of neutralizes what Luka does. Because even if Luka is scoring on the other end, if he's giving up a basket on the other end, it's a wash. Now, the 2 players who I think who are going to show up big in the playoffs, at least in my mind, who have something to prove, are Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo. More so Julius Randle in terms of something to prove. Dante DiVincenzo is just someone who is clutch, and we saw what he did last playoffs. Like, when I say he has something to prove, I mean more so like he's just hungry and motivated, and I know that he will show up when he needs to. Julius Randle, I know there's a lot of, talk around him about how he's performed in the playoffs in the past. He kind of has that James Harden reputation, not as much because James Harden has done it more, but Julius Randle is starting to get that reputation. And Julius Randle, if you have not been watching, he has been balling lately. And the thing is about Julius Randle, I think he's actually going to have an incredible series. I think Julius Randle is clearly an X factor because if he plays super well, it makes it 10 times easier for them to win. And I have a feeling he's going to play super well because I think he's motivated from being traded from the Knicks and all the talk around him about not basically being what they need to win. I also think an advantage that no one's really talking about is the fact that Julius Randle was a Laker. You may be like, well, how's that an advantage? When you had played in a building, especially being on that roster in that uniform, like, it's different. Maybe that doesn't apply to everybody, but I feel like someone of Julius Randle's caliber and the fact that he would be so comfortable in that building, I feel like gives him an advantage. When I say advantage, I mean a comfortability standpoint. So like if he's in another building, he may be a bit more nervous, which could throw off his shot, but I feel like he's very comfortable in that building despite the playoff pressure, that it will actually make it easier for him to go off. And again, Luka and LeBron, it's hard to bet against them, especially LeBron. Like, it's hard to ever say LeBron's going to lose in the first round. I think people are so focused on the talent, and rightfully so, but they're dismissing the Timberwolves way too much. Like, this Timberwolves team is well-rounded. And here's one key thing that I also don't know if people are talking about, is the Rudy Gobert factor. In many series in the past, we have talked about how Rudy Gobert gets taken off the floor because he's, not able to guard on the perimeter and he's not having enough of an impact, offensively, and basically teams will play small to play him off the floor. So the advantage that you get by having him on the floor isn't outweighing the disadvantages due to some of these matchups that he's had. But in this series, I actually think Rudy Gobert is going to be effective and he's not going to be played off the floor. Unlike series in the past, the Lakers don't have a big. They were trying to trade for one at the deadline and they didn't get one. And Jackson Hayes played very well post-deadline, so we definitely have to give him credit, but he's not going to be able to guard Rudy Gobert. I don't think the Lakers, and it's crazy to say because again, Rudy Gobert has gotten played off the floor in past series, I don't think the Lakers have anybody to guard him. I think his impact, grabbing rebounds, protecting the paint, and getting, lobs to the rim are going to outweigh any kind of disadvantages that you have with him on the floor, making it a lot harder to beat the Timberwolves. If the Lakers, obviously Anthony Davis can't still be on the team, but if the Lakers had someone like Anthony Davis, something like that, I would probably pick the Lakers to win then because, in addition to whatever they have on the roster, because then I would feel like one of the advantages of Rudy Gobert would not be able to be had. But I think all they need Rudy Gobert to do is just get 10 rebounds, 10 points, and stay in front of somebody on the perimeter if he gets switched. That is all they need him to do. And as long as he can do that and not get played off the floor, the Timberwolves win, in my opinion, because I expect everybody else to do their thing. So I have Timberwolves in 6. Now, I did say there's one stipulation. If Austin Reeves is averaging 28 per game, the way he basically was for 3 weeks, then I might lean Lakers because I've talked about this once before. If you're getting 30 from LeBron, 30 from Luka, and 30 from Austin Reeves, even with the defensive woes, that's really hard to beat because you basically have 100 points from 3 players. So now you have 12 other players on the roster. I know they're not all going to get minutes, but you have 12 other players on the roster that you only need to contribute 30 points amongst all of them, just assuming 120 is the score. Then I would trust the team to get the defensive stops and to only have to score 30 amongst, a multitude of players. That makes sense to me. But I am going to assume, no disrespect to Austin Reeves, incredible season. He's being, ascending all the time, but I'm going to assume Austin Reeves is not going to do that because they are going to put probably Anthony Edwards on him, I think. And we know Anthony Edwards is going to go at you on defense, and I think it's going to affect Austin Reeves. I don't think he's going to be scoring 25 per game. They're going to try to feed him and make sure that he is scoring because LeBron knows when Austin Reeves gets going, it's hard to beat them. But I think Anthony Edwards is going to stop that. And that is essentially the reasons why I think the Timberwolves will win in 6. Knicks versus Pistons, who's going to win? While there are games going on tomorrow, some teams have already locked up their matchup, and one of them being Knicks versus Pistons, 3 versus 6. So being that the Knicks are the higher seed and a 50-win team, do we think that the Knicks are going to win? Let me break down why my answer is yes. Compared to last year when the Pistons lost 26 straight, this is a completely different team. Cade Cunningham is up for Most Improved Player of the Year. I think that he might win the award, but if he doesn't, he definitely is a top 2 candidate. And the whole team in general, they have completely turned things around in one season. Because again, last year, they won 16 games, and now they are a 6 seed. That is a big turnaround. They play great defense, they always play hard, and they have a lot of good players, young, talented players on their team. So they are not going to be an easy out. Because one thing about younger teams is they have a lot of energy. However, one of the things about being young also means that they are inexperienced. Now, let me just say, they do have some veterans and leaders and people with playoff experience such as Tobias Harris and Tim Hardaway Jr. and Malik Beasley. So it's not that they don't have any veterans on their team, but your star, your number one player, Cade Cunningham, is still only like 23, and this would be his first playoffs ever. And same with a bunch of the people, in the starting lineup, like Jalen Duren. And a bunch of players just on the roster in general have never been to the playoffs. Whereas the Knicks, pretty much everybody on that roster has been to the playoffs, and we know that their number one option, Jalen Brunson, is probably going to win Clutch Player of the Year, unless they discount, the fact that he was out a bunch of games. But he was going to win Clutch Player of the Year, like he does it. So the Knicks, we know, they play super hard as well. So even if the Pistons are playing relentless, defense and just have relentless energy, the Knicks do the exact same thing. So in a way, you could say that cancels out. And I would say in the playoffs, the Knicks are going to, and this is no shade to the Pistons, but this is about being young and inexperienced, the Knicks will end up playing better defense because they will know what to do at certain times. It's just like an experience thing. There can be a team who has more talented defenders on their roster, but if none of them have ever been to the playoffs, they might not be the better defensive team because when it's on a certain play at a certain time, there's a certain way to do it. And I know that's not really explaining, but if you watch playoff basketball, you know it's just a completely different animal. The other thing is teams, and this goes for both teams, of course, you get the benefit of being able to focus and lock in on one opponent, and that's all you have to think about. But again, that tends to favor the more experienced team because they're not thinking about, okay, we got to go fly out tomorrow and this, all the other things. Now the more experienced team is focused on you. So they already know how to get it done in general. But now that they are focused on you, they have a better chance of stopping you. So that's that from like the defensive side of the ball and just the inexperience and potentially, some players get rattled their first time in the playoffs. And then, as they get more experience, then that doesn't happen anymore. Like, you have to do something before you know how to do it, So that's one reason that I'm sure people are going to discount, but that's a big thing. We see it all the time. Experience matters. The second thing is that, as I was mentioning, Jalen Brunson is Mr. Clutch. Now, he is still getting his legs under him, but I think he'll be, good enough to go for the first round matchup. The Knicks have a ton of firepower. I mean, Cat, we know he can get 30 on any given night. And the thing is, OG, I've been talking about OG all year. OG is having a career year. As long as OG is going to continue to play the way that he was playing before, well, he started playing like this a little bit before Brunson got hurt, but while Brunson was hurt, especially given the fact that, like I said, Brunson is still getting his legs under him. If OG is going to be aggressive and Mikal Bridges is going to be aggressive, I don't think the Pistons are going to have enough to stop this team. I think one of the things where the Knicks are going to outshine the Pistons is on the offensive glass, because we know, although I think of recent they haven't been the best offensive rebounding team, but we know the Knicks feed off of second chance points. Mr. Robinson obviously being one of their best offensive rebounders. So I do think that is one of the places where they will out-hustle the Pistons and just get to the loose balls. By the way, Josh Hart leads the entire league in loose balls recovered, and I don't think it's even close. Landry Shamet has finally found his shot. That was something that was a little bit of a concern because he seemed to be struggling for a while, so he is peaking at the right time. I think he hit 6 threes the other night, so this is the perfect time to be in rhythm, so that's definitely good for them. Like I said, although Brunson is still, getting his legs under him, when the big moments show up, he shows up. Or when the big moments come, rather, he shows up. Like, there's a reason why he's probably going to win Clutch Player of the Year. And he's tough. Like, I don't know if his ankle is still hurting at all. I don't know if it's, like I said, more just rust rather than any kind of lingering pain. But even if there is lingering pain, you will not be able to know, because he's going to play hard and play through it. And the thing is, he'll still hit shots in your face on a busted ankle. And so this is what I've said for a while and what I said earlier in the year when I was talking about the Knicks, although this was before Brunson got hurt. But at the same time, I said, if it comes down to the wire, if we're talking about the game is on the line and you're giving someone a shot and it's the Knicks versus somebody else and Brunson has the ball, I'm going to take the Knicks to win, because Brunson, again, is always making the clutch shots. I can't remember too many shots that he's missed in the clutch. And so when I made that prediction where I said the Knicks are going to the finals, this was a few months ago, and some people were like, whoa, like with that prediction. And to me, what I said, I don't know if I said it in the video, if I said it in the comments, but this is my point. Sorry, I'm kind of getting off track here, but it just, all ties back in. When the game is on the line, obviously if Boston is blowing them out, or the Cavs are blowing them out, right, if they're in the Eastern Conference Finals or whatever, then of course they're not going to win, right? But I was saying if it's coming down to the wire and the money's on the line, I know Brunson will pull through. Now, for Boston, for example, I know Derek White will also pull through. Like, he is clutch for them as well, right? But I was just saying, I am confident that Brunson will hit all the shots that he needs to make in order to win the game. And so I was like, I'll take my chances if the game is on the line that the Knicks will beat those teams if, it's in clutch time. And so I say all that to say, if this game comes down to the wire, because again, it's going to be hard fought, the Pistons are not just going to give it up. I still say they're going to make it because, one, of all the things I said prior, but Brunson is going to make all the clutch shots. I think this series might go 5, honestly. I know some people are going to be like, that's not fair to the Pistons. I really do think inexperience, matters. And hey, listen, I could be wrong. I have been rooting for Cade all year. I am not rooting against Cade or anything like that. I'm not rooting against the Pistons, but I just seen enough NBA that I know playoff basketball is completely different. And sometimes some of the younger teams prevail against what things that I'm saying, but I feel in this case it'll be 5, maybe 6, and the Knicks win and move on. Thunder versus Grizzlies. Who's going to win? This may be our first sweep alert. This is no disrespect to the Grizzlies, but I'll talk about why I think they might get swept in this series. There are a lot of question marks surrounding the Grizzlies. After Taylor Jenkins gets fired, with like 9 games left in the season, there are some changes that are about to come if they don't make a playoff push. Unfortunately, they got one of the worst first-round matchups they could have gotten. Now, I picked the Warriors to come out of the West. I still stand by that prediction. I still say they're going to the NBA Finals. But team number 2 behind them would be OKC. I mean, it's clear that OKC is the clear better team in this series. And that's no offense to Ja or Desmond Bane or Jaren Jackson Jr., but OKC is loaded. Not only are they loaded, they play together. They are really good offensively. They're a really good defensive team. They literally have everything you could want on a team. I think Isaiah Hartenstein is going to play Zach Edey off the floor, and that's no disrespect to Zach Edey, but he's a rookie, so it has nothing to do with his skill set. It has to do with the fact that he has no experience. I think Isaiah Hartenstein is going to get him in foul trouble or just, drag him out to the 3-point line potentially, even though Isaiah Hartenstein doesn't really shoot that many threes, which is kind of weird because when he was on the Clippers, it's not like he was a main 3-point shooter, but he definitely took more. And then when he went to the Knicks, he just stopped. That was kind of weird to me. So it's not that he's going to drag Zach Edey to the top of the key to shoot a 3, although I guess he could. But it's more that he, kind of plays a Jokic role in a way. Like, he's a very good passer. And so, he'll be at the top of the key, set a screen, and pass the ball. And so Zach Edey, one of his biggest strengths is being in the paint, blocking shots, and all that kind of stuff. Unlike a team playing small, which OKC can do as well, I don't even think they have to. I think Zach Edey might get played off the floor. Again, no disrespect, just because he's a rookie, inexperienced and stuff like that, still developing. Because Isaiah Hartenstein is going to just drag him to the top of the key, and then the Grizzlies have no rim protection. And yes, Jaren Jackson Jr., we know, can block a bunch of shots, but I'm saying their presence. Zach Edey is out there to grab rebounds and to block shots and, be a rim protector. And so if he can't be that, he may be played off the floor. And so the Grizzlies' quote-unquote advantage is gone. Even if that doesn't happen, I still would pick OKC to win in a landslide. Maybe if Zach Edey is able to be and have a big impact, then maybe it goes 5, because the Grizzlies, again, let's not be disrespectful. Ja Morant can get 40 by himself, right? The team is very talented and they have a ton of bench depth. That team gets the most out of their bench. Them and a few other teams are just top tier at developing their bench. Everybody who comes in off the bench, You may not have heard of them before they were on the Grizzlies, but once they're there, they light it up every time they come in. So I do trust in their bench to show up, and it's not that I actually don't trust Ja to show up. I actually do. I just think they're going to be so overpowered because of how good OKC is that it's not going to matter too much. Sometimes the Grizzlies just look confused out there on defense, on offense, more so on defense. Like sometimes they look like they just get lost. When you're playing top tier teams, you can't get lost because the teams will take advantage, and that's exactly what OKC will do. OKC also turns you over like crazy. OKC is going to get a ton of fast break points, so that's already going to, run up the score for them. And if I remember correctly, the Grizzlies are like close to the top of the league, if not leading the league, in fouls per game. Like they try to get up in you, but they also commit a ton of fouls. And we're talking about Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, in my opinion, the MVP, who gets like 10 free throws a game already by himself. So like, if you're just going to foul this team, that's just easy points for them. Again, could I see it going 5? Absolutely. I could see the Grizzlies stealing one game because they are that talented. But my heart of hearts say it's a sweep. OKC just overpowers them in every single game. I could see 2 like giant blowouts and then the other 2 games be close. I really, unfortunately for the Grizzlies and Grizzlies fans, I think it's going to be a sweep. Warriors versus Rockets, who's going to win? Another matchup I know a lot of us are looking forward to is the Warriors versus the Rockets. Now, I have the Warriors winning in 5, and let me explain why. I think the Rockets have had an incredible season. They have blown past everybody's expectations of them. We know Ime Udoka is a very good coach. He was the coach of the Celtics who got to the NBA Finals in 2022 against the Warriors. And I am a big fan of Alperen Sengun. If you watch this page, you know that. I'm so happy he got his first All-Star nod, and he deserved it. I'm not going to act like they don't have any experience on the team. You do have Fred VanVleet, who is an NBA champion. But for the most part, the guys that you are relying on, like Alperen Sengun, like Jalen Green, like Amen Thompson, who I'm also a big fan of. Amen Thompson, future perennial All-Star. But none of them have any playoff experience. Not at all. And experience matters. I say this all the time on the channel. Experience really makes a difference in the playoffs. The only time it doesn't necessarily make a difference is if the talent disparity or the team, play disparity is like so wide that like it wouldn't even matter. So that combined with the fact that on the other side of the spectrum, the Warriors, since they've gotten Jimmy Butler, I think they have maybe the second best record in the entire league or something like that. They went like 23-8 since Jimmy got there. And there was a 2 games Steph was out where they lost. So like 23-6 if you don't count those because Steph wasn't even there. And I don't think Jimmy played one in the game. So it's kind of like 23-5. I'm saying when everybody was fully healthy and on the roster, right? So like they have been like unbeatable basically since Jimmy's got there. And I said this in the video the other day. Since Jimmy has gotten there, they have the #1 defense in the entire league, even over OKC. So a team in the Rockets where we look at them as a very good defensive team, and that is where you would think they have the advantage. They technically don't actually in this series when you're dealing with post, trade deadline, the best defensive team in the league. And then offensively, we know the Rockets are 27th, 28th in the league in like offensive rating. They don't score a lot at all. Sure, you have to be able to play defense and stop people in the playoffs, but the series are not going to be, 80 to 85 points, right? That's not how it's going to go. You're dealing with the Warriors team who, I have to look, but I believe is also top 10 in offensive rating. You got Steph Curry and Jimmy Butler who combined for like 80 points the other day against the Grizzlies. So while they may not score 150 on you, they're gonna get up at least 115 on you. And if you can't match that, that's a problem. And it's not even just about scoring more points, which is obviously the object of the game, but it's also about the timing in which they do it, which also has to do with experience. There are certain shots that you take, time and place, that you learn how to take, or the pass to make, or the rebound to get with the experience. I talked about it in the video where I talked about the Pacers. They ended up beating the Knicks, but they almost didn't because they made so many mistakes that it was clear that a lot of them were mistakes because they just, they'd never been to the playoffs. So like it's different. The pressure, the way you can play defense, just things that happen. And so, like, they almost didn't win, partly because they were just making some silly mistakes. And the Warriors are not only going to recognize that there are ways to make them make mistakes because they're not going to know from not being in the playoffs before, but they will also capitalize on those. They will get some fast break points, and that'll be the end of that. I think the Rockets this summer have to go out and get somebody, whether it's trade or in free agency, somebody who can add to scoring on the team. Playoff Jimmy, I haven't even mentioned him, but I feel like I don't even need to because we know Playoff Jimmy is a thing. He's done it time and time again. He will take over, and I literally am not even like, I wouldn't be surprised if Jimmy drops 50 in one of these games. And I'm not saying he's going to need to drop 50 on the Rockets for them to win, but like, he dropped 56 on the Milwaukee Bucks with Giannis, okay? Jimmy does it. I really just don't think this series is going to be as close as people have been making it out to be, because I've been, listening a bit. I like to hear other people's predictions, the analysts on TV and stuff like that. I've heard quite a few people actually pick the Rocket. I think a lot of the games, if not all of them, are going to be close, hard fought to the end. Because every time the Warriors and the Rockets play, that is literally how the game goes. Even when the Warriors get a nice lead, the Rockets don't give up. And so I do expect most of the games, if not all of them, to come down to the wire, so to speak. But like I said, playoff experience, knowing time and score, knowing what to do. And I expect the Warriors to close every single time, right? So I have the Warriors in 5. I give the Rockets one game because I think the Rockets obviously have shown why they deserve the number 2 seed. I could see it being a sweep, I'm going to be honest, but I say Warriors in 5. I just feel more comfortable with that. Clippers versus Nuggets. Who's going to win? This series is going to be so interesting. I've been saying this Clippers team shouldn't be a sleeper because on paper and even how they've been playing the last month of the season, they're playing like a top tier team. It's funny because we have a couple of lower seed teams like the Clippers, like the Warriors. I think the Warriors are favored in the series, and rightfully so in my opinion, but we'll talk about that in another video. But we have some lower seeded teams in the Western Conference who might technically actually be the better team. Listen, you got Nikola Jokic on the Nuggets. You can never count them out, okay? That man knows how to put on a show. 60-point triple-double, no problem. Zubac and Norman Powell are going to be 2 keys for the Clippers to win this series. As long as everybody plays up to their potential, I think the Clippers win this series. Let's start with Zubac. The only reason I have question marks about him is not due to his play. I just have to wonder, is he going to be in foul trouble because of Jokic? That is the question I'm going to have. Now, I do think Clippers can still win even if Zubac is in foul trouble, but that'll make it 10 times harder because nobody can guard Jokic then. And the Zubac-Harden connection is something that's really special, and that also is part of what makes the Clippers unique, is that combination. Harden is just so good with bigs. So if he is in foul trouble, that's going to take away not only a defender on Jokic, but also an element of uniqueness for the Clippers because he won't be out there. So that is something where I think the series could extend a little longer if that happens. Now let's talk about Norman Powell. I've been talking about him for a while. Underrated player. He's finally getting the recognition that he deserves. I still wish he had gotten an all-star spot this year. I still think he deserved it, but he can prove in the playoffs why he did deserve it. I'll have to check, but I think he's their leading scorer still at this point. Maybe Harden overtook him, but I think it's still Norman Powell. I just went to look. James Harden overtook him by like 1 point per game. But for basically the entire year, Norman Powell was leading them in scoring. And man, is he clutch. Every time they need someone to bail them out, they need a 3, they need something, Norman Powell does not miss. I gotta look up what his stats are when like the Clippers need a basket. I don't even know if that statistic is out there. But if it is, Norman Powell's got to be shooting like 70% in those situations. And if he's going to continue to play the way he's played all year, there's no way that Denver can stop the Clippers or him. I know people have questions about James Harden in the playoffs, and we will see what happens. But my thing that I said about the Clippers a few months ago when I was talking about James Harden's potential, playoff issues was I said with the emergence of Norman Powell, and then Zubac if he's not in foul trouble, but the emergence of Norman Powell being such a steady scorer for them gives them more flexibility if Harden does have some bad games. Sure, you can't replace Harden, right? But Kawhi, we know he's going to do his thing in the playoffs as long as he's healthy. Him being healthy is, a question that we need to see him stay healthy for the playoffs, but we know when he's healthy, he shows up. Like, that's not a question about Kawhi. And so you would say James Harden is, I guess, the second option to Kawhi, right? And let's just say James Harden doesn't have it. At least now they can go to Norman Powell, who will still give them 25-30 if they need to. So even if James Harden is a bit absent in that sense, they still can get scoring elsewhere. Now, if they want to win the championship, James Harden cannot have his playoff issues continue. Like, Norman Powell cannot do the whole thing by himself, right? So, James Harden needs to, not have those playoff issues in order for them to win the championship. But in order to get out of the first round, I think it will be not good if he does that, but they can get out of the first round even still. I think anything more than that, like if James Harden just doesn't play well in the series and Zubac is in foul trouble, everybody else has to play top tier because now your margin for error is really small. Like, I don't think anything else can go wrong, quote unquote, and then the Clippers still win the series. Like, I think they have more margin for error than Denver does. And so that's why I'm like, well, if this happens, they can still win. But anything beyond that, then they're not going to win because then there's too many things going wrong for them, right? Too many mishaps. For Denver, Jokic is going to do his thing, right? Jamal Murray, we know, has shown up in the playoffs, but he's coming off that hamstring injury, and hamstrings are so tricky. And I know he's technically healthy right now, but I'm nervous about his hamstring limiting him in the playoffs. And Michael Porter Jr. is just a little too inconsistent for my taste. And because, again, I said they don't have any margin for error, Michael Porter Jr. has to be on every game, in my opinion, if they want to win. There can be no inconsistency from him. And I'm not trying to put an unfair amount of, blame or pressure on him. But I'm just saying, I feel like because this Clippers team is so well coached, they are so good in the clutch, they have so many options, they execute well. Michael Porter Jr., because again, we know Jokic is going to do his thing, and as long as Jamal Murray's hamstring is not limiting him, I would expect him to also not be inconsistent. Then again, it comes down to Michael Porter Jr., and so fair or not, if he is going to be inconsistent, I don't think they can win this series. And that is why I say I'm going to pick the Clippers to win, because I feel more comfortable in saying that the Clippers, again, as long as Kawhi is healthy, that is a big stipulation, but as long as Kawhi is healthy, I feel better about the Clippers executing and figuring it out. Even if Zubac is in foul trouble, then Michael Porter Jr. potentially having 4, 5, 6 big games in a row. So I'll say Clippers in 6 because I think Jokic can win 2 games by himself. I think Jokic is that good. But I do think the Clippers win in 6. Celtics versus Magic. Who's going to win? I am really looking forward to this matchup, and here's why. I do think the Celtics are going to win, but something that the Magic always do is they always play the Celtics tough. Even when they lose in the matchups, you can tell that it's not as easy of a matchup for the Celtics. It's just the way that the Magic play. Now, the Magic do struggle to score, which is a large reason as to why I don't have them winning this series. And sure, the same way that the Magic don't have anybody to guard Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown necessarily, there's nobody who can guard Paolo. So to me, I see this being a Paolo-heavy series and him getting 30 points per game a night. And I saw Jaylen Brown said his injury is no concern and whatever. And obviously we expect him to play and be well enough to play, but if there's some kind of injury that is limiting him in any kind of way, that obviously doesn't help the Celtics. I do think that the Celtics win in 5, I think. The Magic, I guess, could push it to 6, but I say 5. I think the Magic get 1 game. The Magic are always just, like I said, they always play them tough. So the Magic are definitely going to get 1 game where the Celtics just can't guard them, right? That's just going to happen. But then the other games, I just feel like the Celtics are going to run away with it. Not even necessarily that the games are blowouts, but the Celtics are going to get the 4 other games in whatever order that is. I would love to see a 7-game series of this just because I love when these two teams face each other. Like I said, it always just is a fun matchup. I don't think it's going 7, but if it does, hey, more fun. I think the Celtics kind of similar to OKC, but a little bit different, is that the Celtics are just going to overpower them in the end. And a lot of that, like I said, is due to the lack of scoring. Again, I know Powell's going to show up and do his thing, but they still are like 28th in the league in like offensive rating. They don't score a ton of points. They need more three-point shooting, and that is something they will address in the offseason. But for now, that's going to hinder them against the Celtics team who loves to take 100 threes. And that's also why I could see the Celtics losing at least one game, because they live by the three, they die by the three. And when their threes are not going in, although obviously, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown can get to the basket, it's not that, but they rely so heavily on the three that, like, it gets to the point where if their shots are not falling from three, they'll lose a game. So I could see there's going to be one game where their shots are not falling from three. But then there'll be that one game, maybe more than one, but you know what I'm talking about. All of a sudden they're off to a 30-7 start, and they made 9 of 12 from three in the first quarter. You know what I'm saying? Because it's not just the starters. Sam Hauser and Peyton Pritchard are always ready to shoot the three. They are always ready. And Derek White, I talk about him all the time. That man is so clutch, so important to the Celtics. That honestly is probably like the best trade they ever made. It's right up there with the Drew Holiday trade because, again, we know how incredible he was and has been for them. But the Derek White trade, Derek White has been unbelievable for them. And also experience. They just won a championship. And Drew Holiday has won 2 championships. Like, I always talk about it, experience matters. They know how to get it done, and it's a first-round matchup, so, like, the pressure isn't super heavy, although, I guess it technically is, because if the Celtics lost in the first round, people would be screaming about it. But what I mean by less pressure is, like, it should be an easier matchup than, the Eastern Conference Finals or the NBA Finals. I think they're going to get it done. I don't think it's going to be much of an issue. I think it happens in 5. And then the Magic can go address the issues in the offseason because I like this Magic team. I want to see them do well. They're still very young. Like, they kind of are technically still overachieving, if you think about it. A team that's almost dead last in offensive rating should not make the playoffs. That's a similar thing you could say about the Rockets, a team that is pretty low in scoring, but a really good defense, and they are number 2 in the West. Like, they have definitely earned people's respect. But I'm saying, like, the Magic are still a very young team. Paolo was only like 22. Like, in a way, they are overachieving a bit. And they had so many injuries. Like, Paolo was out for a long time with the torn oblique. And then Franz Wagner got the same exact injury, which is so weird. Literally not right after, but like, it was like close to Paolo returning, and then Franz Wagner got the same injury. It was so strange. So I'm excited to see them grow, but I see Celtics in 5. Cavs versus Heat. Who's going to win? The Miami Heat make the playoffs yet again. I do think the Cavs are going to win this series. They might win in 4, but I'm also going to give 5. 1, because Miami Heat always get it done at least one time. Respect to Miami. This series could be a sweep. So, like, I have 4 potential sweeps in the NBA playoffs first round. OKC, I'm predicting a sweep. Like, I don't even think 5. I'm going sweep. For this one, I'm going 5, but I could see a sweep here. Celtics, same thing. I think it goes 5 because I think the Magic get one, but I could see a sweep. And then the Rockets versus Warriors, I have Warriors winning in 5, but I could see it also being a sweep. Little spoiler alert, but make sure you watch all those videos. The Miami Heat have earned the right to get one game, right? We know they figure out a way, always and forever. There's always a way for them to win at least one. However, beyond that, similar to OKC and kind of the Celtics, the disparity here is rather large. Like, Miami will execute. We are not concerned about them executing down the stretch, throughout the game. They know the game plan. I talked about this in a previous video. Even if you execute perfectly, there comes a point where the disparity is so large, it doesn't matter too much. And so unfortunately, that is the case for Miami here, I think. And I think the Cavs are just going to overwhelm them. Now, I think there might be at least one blowout in here, but I do think that Miami should be able to keep it somewhat close for at least 3 of the game, just because, again, they know how to execute at least in case, the Cavs get cold at some point. But generally speaking, the Cavs, again, just have so much firepower. They're going to be able to overpower them in the end, regardless of how well Miami executes. and they're going to win those games. This is Evan Mobley's time to shine. This is his coming out party because we saw it happen in the regular season this year, which I was very much looking forward to because I said for the Cavs to take the next step, they need Evan Mobley to take the next step. So he's done that, and this is the perfect first round series for him to warm up in. Again, no disrespect to Miami, but the perfect first round series to warm up in, where he plays against another really talented big in Bam Adebayo, who can guard 1 through 5, and so he's going to have his hands full, but this is a perfect matchup for him to learn. Not only is he playing against another talented big, but again, the team of Miami themselves, again, execute, execute, execute. So this is a perfect test for Evan Mobley to show and see his growth. I think it may be really important for him. Like this you may not know it in the moment, but this may help him in the second round and, however far they go. Third round, it depends how far they go. Sometimes you just need a certain thing to make it click. And again, it started clicking for him this season, but now we're in the playoffs and this is the perfect time for him to execute what he has already done. And once he sees that he can win and he can do it in a way where he is dominant, he can carry that through in future series. I feel like if he gets caught up a little bit in this series, Donovan Mitchell, can bail him out, so to speak. And like I said, the talent disparity, or not even just talent, but the scoring disparity is, kind of large. Whereas if the first round matchup was the Celtics, the margin for error, that's really what I'm saying. The margin for error would be so small that I feel like it could cause Evan Mobley to tense up before he figures out what he was supposed to do, if that makes sense. I also expect Darius Garland to play much better this playoffs. I see him having a great playoff, experience this time. And Donovan Mitchell, we know, is going to do his thing. Like, he's ready for it. As for Miami, I think this is a great learning experience for the young guys like Kel'el Ware, who has been a real bright spot for them despite, the whole Jimmy thing. But for all the young guys who are, getting more experience and just developing team culture, because Andrew Wiggins is fairly new to the team, I feel like this is just a great experience for them overall. I'm not trying to give them like the participation trophy because I know that they don't want that. I'm just saying they have a lot more younger guys now. And so I feel like this would be a good learning experience for them. Pacers versus Bucks. Who's going to win? This matchup is going to be so fun. I know everybody wants to see the Lakers, the Warriors, and rightfully so because so do I. But I have a funny feeling this matchup might be one of the best series out of the first round matchups. And these two teams actually have a little bit of a rivalry going. Let me use that term lightly, but at the same time, I think this matchup we're going to see some crazy plays from Giannis. I also think Pascal Siakam is going to be one of the best players in this series. You may be thinking, well, that's not a surprise because Siakam's a really good player. But when I say one of the best, I mean, I think he's going to go head to head with Giannis in terms of like points per game. Obviously, Giannis is going to, probably grab more rebounds and he might average a triple-double if Dame is not back. Which, by the way, did you see the news that Dame is actually cleared for 3-on-3 or something like that? Like, he's not going to be back for game 1, but he might be back later in the series. So that is something to definitely look out for. Shout out to Dame for being able to heal up so quick. And hopefully he gets back soon. But in the meanwhile, it's going to be Giannis and the Giannis show. And don't be surprised if Giannis is averaging a 30-point triple-double, like I said. 30, 15, and 10. Honestly, I feel like that's what he's going to do. Back to Siakam, I just have this feeling he's going to be on like some kind of tear scoring-wise. Like, efficient, he can't miss, and it's going to be 30 points per game like every game. This series is a bit hard to predict given the Dame, questionable status. I don't know if Dame is going to come back in this round, or if he does, like that kind of makes it, difficult to decide because Dame is a huge part of what the Bucks do. So let's just assume that Dame is not ready for the first round matchup. He'll be ready for the second round if they make it through, but not the first round. With that being said, if they don't have Damian Lillard, and I know Dame is not a great defender, but you need to outscore the Pacers at times because the Pacers can put up 150 on you on any given night. Similar to the Atlanta Hawks, this team loves to play fast, they score a lot, and they have a lot of talent on that roster. And last year, Ben Mathurin was not healthy for the playoffs. He will be there this year. I think Giannis is going to be on a mission because he does not want to lose in the first round. Like, I'm telling you, Giannis is going to play out of his mind, which is why I think this series might go to 7, because I think without Dame, I think Giannis is going to be so good that this series will come to 7. At the end of the day, if Dame is not there, I do think the Pacers will ultimately edge them out in Game 7. And Giannis might have 50 points in Game 7, but I do think the Pacers will win it in the end. I think the amount of players that they can just throw out there on the court, the Pacers, because again, besides Siakam and Halliburton and Ben Mathurin that I just mentioned, we all know TJ McConnell, he gets it done, right? He may not be the star, but he will do his thing. And then you have Aaron Nesmith. You still have Miles Turner, who always plays well when you need him to. That man can shoot the three. He will step out and just do a bunch of really good things. So they still have that player on their roster. I also think because the Pacers did get experience last year, they made a lot of young team inexperienced mistakes. We saw it in the playoffs against the Knicks especially. There were just some lapses that you just can't have. They did end up beating the Knicks, but they almost didn't because of some of the things they were doing. So I expect there to be less of that. Now, I do think Giannis, again, will still take advantage every way, shape, and form. They're obviously going to play the foul game with him at times. It's going to be up to him to make his free throws the way he did in the NBA Finals to make sure that they are not winning when they foul him. I just think without Dame, it's hard for me to say that they have enough to beat the Pacers. Again, I think it's going to be a hard-fought series. I can see it going 7, maybe 6, but I really do believe it's going to be a long series. If Dame is there, again, I don't think he's going to be there for Game 1 regardless, but if somehow Dame can get there for Game 2, that makes it different. But again, I don't know what Dame is going to look like when he comes back because he's been out a while, and it's really hard to just jump back in the playoffs, especially when he's been out due to a blood clot issue. But even with Dame back, I don't know if I can pick the Bucks to win, just because I don't know where he's going to be at. But that definitely helps their chances. And if he is there by Game 2, I wouldn't be surprised if they won. I just don't know what he's going to look like when he's back.